Now let's learn some wildcard characters that we can use in XPath. So let's start with star. It matches any element nodes in the HTML document. Whereas you can use @star, that means any attribute node. Okay, so let's try both of these in our sample application. Here, let's type // star. So the star stands for any element node. Okay, so you can see that 1 of 214 as a result. So there are 214 element nodes in this HTML document. So it could be anything. All right. And now if you want to make it unique, you can give some additional parameters, like let's specify some attribute @id equals fname. All right. So now it's unique, right? Now it's showing 1 of 1. Okay. So you'll probably see some XPath written like this with star by some people. Okay. That's very common in the industry. Okay. Now let's see how @star works. That means any attribute nodes, right? So what I'm going to do is let's remove this attribute and let us make it as @star. All right, so that means any attribute. Okay, so any element with some attribute. So the attribute could be anything, right? All right, so we have 84 such elements, 1 of 84. Okay, and let's try one more thing. So instead of specifying star for the HTML tag, let's give some specific tag, maybe button. Okay, so here now you can see that we are looking for all the buttons in this DOM and then some attribute. Okay, so our attribute could be anything. Okay, button element with any attribute. All right, so we got 3 of them. Okay, so let's quickly inspect. So the first one selected has got some attribute. It's a button element with some attribute here. You can see the attribute on click, right? And then for the next one, there is again a button within some attribute. Okay, and the third one, okay, with button with class attribute, and there's one more attribute on click. Now let's see how we can combine multiple conditions with logical operators like and or. When you use and, it will locate the element only when all the conditions that you specify are met. But in the case of or, it can locate the element when any of the conditions are met. All right, so let's try it out in our sample site. Okay, so here I'm gonna give an expression // input @type equal to text and @id equals fname. Okay, so we have 2 conditions related to the attributes here. So the type of the type attribute has to be text and id attribute has to be fname for an input element. Okay, and this is uniquely identifying a particular element. Okay, that's why we are seeing 1 of 1 here, right? That means it's uniquely identifying the web element. All right, so that's an input HTML tag and type equals text and id is fname. Okay, so now let's try with an or clause. I'm gonna make it as or. So in this case, you can see that it's identifying 4 elements. So you can see 1 of 4 here. Okay, so in the first case, okay, so that means either of these condition is met, right? So you can see that the type is text here, right, for this input element, and the id is not matching. Okay, in fact it's different, right? So again, since the clause is or, it is selecting this element. So likewise, when you inspect all these 4 elements, you can see that 1 of these is met. All right, now let's learn an XPath function contains. So this contains function finds elements containing a partial attribute value. Now take a look at this example. Okay, // input contains id and then name, right? So what it means is it'll locate an element with HTML tag input, and it should have an attribute id and its value should contain the string name in it. So let's go to our sample site and check it out. So here, let's enter an XPath // input contains id, then name. Okay, and it's locating 3 elements. Okay, 1 of 3, right? So let's go to the first one, and it says the HTML tag is input, so that's matched. And let's look for the function. Okay, so it says there has to be an attribute ID, okay, and its value should contain name in it. So here, what's the value? It's uname, okay. So this string contains name in it, right? So this is located. And now let's look for the second one, okay. So here also the HTML element, the HTML tag is matched, and the ID attribute is there, and it's containing, the value contains name in it, right? Okay, and let's look for the third one. Here we have the input element, and there is an ID attribute, and its value is lname, right? So it has got name in it. Now take a look at the starts with function. It finds elements where an attribute value starts with a certain prefix. Now take a look at this example. / input starts with ID fn. Okay, that means it'll locate an element with HTML tag input, and it has got an attribute, and it should start with the string fn. Now let's go to a sample application and try it out. So here we can enter an XPath. / input starts with ID fn. Okay, and you can see that it's uniquely identifying one element, one of one here, right? So let's take a look at here. So you can see that the HTML tag is input, that's matching. And what about the condition in the function? Okay, it starts with, there has to be an ID attribute, right? So here in this element, there's an ID attribute, and its value should start with the string fn. Okay, so here it's starting with fn. Now let's learn text function. So this selects elements with a specific text. So take a look at this example, / a text of equals home, and it selects the link with text home. Now let's try it out in our sample site. Let's enter the XPath here, / text of home, right? And it's uniquely identifying one particular element here. So let's take a look at here. So we have HTML tag A here, and the text associated with it, it's home, right? And that's what our criteria here. And in the screen as well, it's showing home, right?